Today I'd like to tell a folk tale. Usually I tell personal tales, but once in a while I like a good humdinger of a folk tale, and I think you'll like this one. Rosalind Curvin has a wonderful version of this in a book called English Fairy Tales and Legends. Here's my version. Off the northeast coast of England, there is a huge rock that sits in the ocean. And on that rock, there is a castle. And long ago, and once upon a time, a king lived in that castle. His wife had died years before. He had a daughter, the Princess Margaret, but she was growing up, and he wanted to marry again. So he went off to find a new wife. And would you believe? He was back in a week with a brand new wife. Everyone was rather shocked. Granted, she was beautiful, and she was witty, and he was obviously smitten. But within a month, everyone else in the kingdom couldn't stand the sight of her, because she was also spiteful and selfish and cruel. She was especially cruel to the Princess Margaret, the entire Cinderella bit. Gone were her pretty clothes, gone were all her privileges. Well, the king and the queen decided to have a fancy ball. Everyone who was anyone was invited. And as each person arrived, they went to the king, they went to the queen, they swore their undying allegiance. They said to the king how beautiful the new queen was. She smiled. One person came that no one knew. His name was Young Knight of the Wind. And he went to the king. He swore his allegiance. And then he ignored the beautiful queen, walked across the room to find sitting in the corner the Princess Margaret, and he said, "I have come from afar to see you. And it is true what they say. You are the most beautiful woman in all the world." The queen was not pleased. She said to the guards, "Seize that young man, tie him, gag him, throw him in a rowboat without oars, and set him adrift in the rocky ocean, where we hope he will be smashed to death on the rocks." The guards obeyed her immediately, and everyone at the party went home. It broke the party. And that night, when everyone was asleep, the queen went downstairs to a secret room she knew about, where she kept all her books of magic charms and spells and herbs and potions and poisons. Because you've got to know, she was not just the queen. She was a wicked witch. And the only reason the king was so much in love with her was because she slipped a love potion into his drink every night. Well, that next morning when the princess woke up, she felt terrible. She felt strange. Her shoulders were pushing up against the ceiling of the room, and her head was pushed down. And as she started to move, she broke through the walls of her bedroom, and her long tail, for by now she had a long tail, was swishing behind her, leaving a trail of stinking slime. She got down the stairs, breathing out smoke and flames. When she got to the door of the castle, the king turned to his wife, that magic love potion completely broken, and said, "What have you done to my daughter?" And the queen said, "Fool, can't you see? I've changed her into a dragon." Well, meanwhile, the knight, who had been set adrift, somehow managed to avoid all those rocks around the castle and drifted all the way to Norway, where he was rescued and served the king and collected a little store of gold. But he never forgot the princess. And everyone who came from that castle of Bamberg, he asked, "Have you heard any news?" Finally, a traveler came who was from the village, and he said, I've come from there. He said, "I hope I never go back." He said, "There's a dreadful dragon, lives there now. All the land around has been scorched, and the dragon has eaten every sheep and cow and every bit of poultry that lives. People are starving." And the knight said, "Well, the king has many brave knights. Why doesn't he do something about the dragon?" And the traveler said, "Oh, the king can't forget that that dragon used to be his daughter." Well, the young knight wasted no time. He took some of his gold. He went to visit a wise woman in the village. He asked what he could do about the dragon and about the witch. He knew he wasn't strong enough on his own. And the old woman says, "There are things you can do. First of all, you must build your boat out of the wood of the rowan tree, because only the wood of the rowan tree is strong enough to protect you from witchcraft. And next, when you see the dragon, you will be afraid, because the dragon is a fearsome thing. But you must remember who the dragon used to be. And finally, don't forget about the witch." Well, the young knight built a boat out of the rowan tree, and he sailed back, and as he got close, the witch caused great storms in the ocean around the castle. But his boat stayed strong, and he landed safely on shore. When he got on shore, he looked around. Everywhere he looked, the land was scorched black, and he didn't see a soul on shore. He stepped on the sand, and overhead he heard a fearful, loud, whirring sound, the sound of massive dragon wings above his head. And he smelled the stinking stench of dragon. And then the dragon landed right in front of him, puffing smoke and bits of flame. And he was dreadfully afraid. And he feared for his life, and he thought to himself, "If I'm going to die, let me die fighting for my life." And he pulled out his sword. And then he remembered what the wise woman had told him. And he closed his eyes for just a second. And the image of the beautiful princess came into his head. And he put his sword down on the ground. And the dragon did not move. He stepped towards the dragon. He put out his palm, and he stepped closer and closer to those oozing, stinking scales of the dragon's hide. And when he was close enough, he kissed the dragon's skin once, twice, 3 times. And with that, there was a giant poof, and the sand blew up. He couldn't see the dragon anymore. And when the sand settled back on the ground, there in front of him was the beautiful princess. Oh, they embraced. Everybody came running out of the castle. Everybody was joyful and laughing. The king gave the princess hand in marriage right away, and the princess and the knight were very, very happy until the queen came out of the castle, and she was furious. She raised her scepter in the air, ready to cast another venomous spell. And the knight remembered the 3rd piece of advice. Don't forget about the queen. He ran as fast as he could and grabbed the scepter out of her hand and flung it into the ocean, where it sputtered and sank, twisting slowly down into the water. And at the same time, the queen began spinning round and round, sputtering and sputtering, until people looked down. There was nothing left of her but a small, stinking toad, which hopped into a nearby muddy ditch and was never seen again. But the princess and the knight and the king and everyone else lived happily ever after.